On this week's episode of the Sustainable Ministry Show, Stephen and Melissa share best practices with committees. It's episode 32. We need to celebrate our wins. Well, hey, everybody, we are back again with the Sustainable Ministry Show. And once again, joined with Melissa Rao and Stephen Ingram, of course. Why don't you guys introduce yourself? And then I'm curious, what's been a highlight this week for you? What's something that's got you excited that you've experienced recently?
It's all you, Melissa.
I just got back from an amazing 7-day cruise. With my husband and my 3 kids, and I have to brag because we were delayed getting out of Houston. We went out of Galveston and we flew into Houston. So coming home, the flight was super delayed and we had a connection in Atlanta. My kids are 16, 12, and 10. And thanks to the amazing work that we do with Ministry Architects, I do a lot of traveling. And so every now and then I get upgraded to first class. And it's so barbaric that I would say yes to first class, even though the rest of my family's sitting in the back of the plane. I said yes because it earned us a 3rd free checked bag. So I took the upgrade.
That's awesome.
Is that how you sleep at night? To tell yourself that you made it? For me, I am 2 things. One is Labor Day was this past weekend. Which means a couple of things. One is that didn't work on Monday. That's always exciting. And 2, it meant that the college football started, which if you know anything about me, you know I'm a huge Alabama fan. So if there's any USC fans who happen to be watching this video, I'm not going to apologize, but yeah, that was rough. I'm proud of you guys for getting there. Proud of you guys for getting to the stadium, and I hope you all made it home okay.
Yeah. So this past weekend, my wife and I got away. So it's funny, like the same for all 3 of us. There's a little vacation piece in the midst of our excitement, but we got away for her birthday. And I tend to surprise her on her birthday. She likes surprises. I like to plan things. So we went and stayed at the Mass Farm Inn, a little bed and breakfast outside Boone in North Carolina. If anybody else likes staying at bed and breakfast, I would put that on your radar. It was fantastic. Food was great. Hospitality was wonderful. So we hung out around a farm, a garden, and then we hiked to see waterfalls. It was awesome. The other thing that happened this week, as you guys are listening and watching, is a couple weeks ago, but the other thing that happened this week is I had somebody reach out to just talk about how to help their committee, one of their committees in the church, continue to move forward, to be responsible for the tasks that they had been given, and then to know that they're empowered to see those through. But the committee just seems stuck, and I don't think that's uncommon in churches for some of the committees just to be stuck and maybe not fully either understand what they've been asked to do, or it has become something so much more than what they initially thought. But what are some of the things you've seen that have helped committees move forward in their work?
Every committee with whom we've worked, we will typically recommend, if there's already not a committee in place, one of the things the Ministry Architects does is recommend to put a committee of parents or other folks who just love children's, youth, or any type of ministry within the church to get some of this. And every committee is different. Some committees are relentless and just push and push and push and work the plan and actually burn themselves out and forget to afford themselves the grace that progress is being made to stop, take time, smell the coffee, and celebrate the good stuff that's been done.
I think it's hard to have a committee that really functions well unless you start well. And what I mean by starting well with a committee, one is making sure everybody understands their role. Everybody on the committee needs to have a job description. They need to understand what they're being asked to do. They need to understand the time commitments, both in committee meetings and outside of committee meetings. if you say to someone, hey, we're gonna have a committee, we're gonna meet once a month for an hour a month, in their head they're thinking, hey, this is an hour a month job. The truth of the matter is it's probably another 7 to 10 hours a month of outside work, research, creation of documents or whatever. So make sure they understand what's being asked of them before they commit.
It seems like so many times
I would echo.
the chairperson is reluctant, or somebody on the committee is reluctant to be the chairperson, just because there's this sense that they're going to own all the work.
That's right.
And they'll become the committee person rather than have the team.
I loved what you said, that the chairperson needs to lead, not necessarily be a laborer. And I think running a good meeting is just the first step. But holding your team accountable, like what Stephen mentioned, is super important. And I think the best way to help committee members be accountable to what they say they're going to do is by determining who's taking it, but by when something is going to be handled. So I'm all about deadlines. I think deadlines are a great way to hold people accountable.
Yeah, one of the things I like to share with those chair people in the committees I've worked with personally is to ask them that just one of their tasks every month is to follow up with everybody else on the team. So as they're distributing tasks in meetings, everybody else may take 3 tasks. The chairperson may only take 1, but that's because they've already got a task every month, which is to connect to those folks and say, how's it going? What other support do you need? How can I help? Are there decisions that we need to make? That kind of thing. And that is just a part of their ongoing task moving forward. Where are the places that committees tend to get stuck?
I would say the number one place I see is when folks get analysis paralysis. A lot of times folks will just want to get more and more and more information, and sometimes we function under this false belief or assumption that if we get enough information, the choice will be completely clear and evident and we'll reach full consensus. And that's just not how this works. Decisions very rarely are made because every single person agrees. And so the first thing I would say is do your due diligence, get the information, get all the things that you need to make your decision. And then someone needs to actually make the decision. You can't wait for everybody to agree. I think just understand that it's a process and that you're not always going to make the best decision the first time. But if you don't make a decision, you're going to be sitting there talking about the same subject, meeting after meeting after meeting, and then people just get frustrated. Make a decision, deal with the consequences, both good and bad, and move forward. Don't be afraid to make decisions.
I also think it's important to be patient. I think in today's world of instant gratification, I think some committees can find themselves getting stuck when they pull the trigger on launching a new idea or a new program, an event of some sort, and it didn't go exactly the way they thought it would. But oftentimes things take time to develop into something that's awesome. So though your vision might not necessarily be met with the first try at something, oftentimes it takes 2 or 3 times to duplicate it over and over again until you've worked out the kinks to determine if it's in fact a success or not.
Yeah, and it seems like people get really frustrated, and this maybe is the other side of the coin to something I think maybe Stephen said up front is when they come together and they do all the work in the meeting itself. If your committee's only responsible for one thing, then that might work. But if you've got multiple tasks, the meetings do take long. They do get frustrated. You're sitting in, rather than 45 minutes or 60 minutes, sitting in a 3-hour meeting, and usually by that point, folks are around the table are thinking, okay, we got to get out of here. I got to make up an excuse to leave.
So if you're in a meeting, whether it's an hour long or an hour and a half long, I never recommend going longer than an hour and a half. I shoot for an hour because, again, all the work, just like Bryant said, should be done outside of the meeting. The meeting is just a matter of pulling everybody together, updating everybody where we were at, and then getting marching orders to do the work outside of the meeting. That's what a good meeting should look like. But when only one person is talking, should give you some warning bells, should go off and say, okay, you know what, friends, we're not really functioning as a team here. We're just coming in, listening to somebody download information to us, giving us our marching orders and moving on. I think the ideal meeting is when everybody has their thing, like everybody should have their monkey. They're coming back, they're kind of sharing with everybody else how that monkey's been managed, and then going forth. So I think a good leader, a good chairperson is drawing out all the information everybody needs to hear of the other person so that the team is functioning well.
A lot of times you'll have committee members who will just by default be the first one to take everything. And so a good leader also has to say, all right, you've already got a couple of things on your plate for this one, and then delegate and offer it to other folks. When you have one person who overfunctions in the committee, and they're taking work that could otherwise be really exciting work for other folks on the committee, and they're holding it all in themselves, the rest of the committee disengages, and usually that person will burn out as well. And so you have a committee that stops functioning.
I know sometimes we have made suggestions that a committee is just not functioning in a way that a committee should function. And in those cases, I think sometimes we'll disband, but we typically reimagine or restructure or recharge a committee because the work still needs to be done. So this is totally an opinion thing, y'all. You could disagree with me. But I just feel like if there needs to be collaboration, the staff needs to support volunteers. The volunteers needs to come alongside the staff people to move any ministry forward. And so I'm not. I mean, you've seen that book, Death by Committee. We can go overboard, and mainline Protestant churches really tend to love their committees. To hate them because they typically don't function the way they should function. So committees aren't necessarily a bad thing. It's when the committees aren't doing the work they've been charged to do when things start getting problematic. Disbanding, maybe reimagining or realigning, or maybe getting new, fresh perspective in those roles and recharging people to see the vision we're trying to move forward. That's more along the lines of what I'm a fan of. I'm not a fan of saying we need to go away because work still needs to get done.
I'm more of a fan of very, very graciously, very thankfully, telling the committee, hey, I think we've done all that we can do. We need to celebrate our wins, and we'll move on to the next incarnation of what this committee might look like, or another team. But to say, oh, let's take a break, let's take a 6-month break. Usually that's just code for, you're not doing a good job. Let's let's buy ourselves some time until we can figure this out.
Yeah, I appreciate y'all's input there. I think those cases are rare. They're rare instances when we do that. But I think there's some ways that if we go about setting up those committees, that it becomes really a thing that it's just an idea for some other place to respond with. Because here we're clear about what we ask the committees to do. Here we're clear about who our chairperson is and what their role is on the committee. We're clear about the task, and everybody's participating in that, and then we're faithful to that process of bringing people onto committees. I know that's hard, and some churches get stuck with that because you just take whoever says yes.
That's right.
Right? Like, if you'll say yes, come on. But I think if you follow those steps, it becomes something new, and it allows us to reimagine or redream what the committee could be doing, and all that we hope for within the life of our church.
Being on a committee, if you're on a committee that's worth having, it's hard work.
Yeah.
You're not just like what Stephen said in the beginning. You're not just signing up to go to a monthly meeting, or you shouldn't be, to get information downloaded into your brain just to walk off and let that stuff mess up in your head for 30 days until you go back just to get downloaded information to you again. Being on a committee, you're committing to working. it's a work group. And so if you're on a committee that's doing really good work, it's hard. It takes time, and sometimes it can get messy. And just because you have job description doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to get frustrated.
Melissa, you want to let people know how they can follow up with you?
Sure, I'd love to hear from you. Feel free to give me send me an email at melissa@ministryarchitects.com. You can also hook up with me on Facebook or the Twitter, Melissa Ralph. Pretty easy.
And if folks have questions, we're going to be fielding questions from folks. Should they send those directly to you as well?
They should. Melissa@ministryarchitects.com. And I've already been getting some really great responses from some questions we've posted online. And so hopefully next week with our next podcast, we'll start our segment with some comments and some feedback from what y'all have been saying from the field.
Excellent. Stephen?
Awesome. Yeah. Love to chat with you over at 12stonespirituality.com, which is where I blog and check in pretty regularly. And you can obviously email me at Stephen, STEPHEN, @ministryarchitects.com. And I'd love to connect with you there, as well as Twitter and all the other social media venues. So, yeah.
And I am Bryant Johnson. So Bryant@ministryarchitects.com. Feel free to email me there. Find me on Facebook at /Bryant Johnson, and the Twitter and social media as well, minus Snapchat. Still not there. So thanks, you guys. Thanks for your feedback on committees and kind of talking what that can look like, both the pretty side of it and the ugly side. I appreciate your time.
Ha ha ha!